track record on campaigning and activism, it's completely unquestionable. You've been out there fighting for the cardiac care for years, and a lot of people have to salute you and salute those who were out marching and out with the placards and organizing online and organizing locally. We have to take our hats off to you for that. Look, my grandfather, just to share it with you, I didn't plan to, but my grandfather a couple of years ago was on a trolley, and he and I used to. I was, I grew up with him, and he and I used to always talk politics at the kitchen table. And I used to often say to him that, you're wasting your money with a private health insurance, that it's not going to get you anywhere. And he was like, oh, you're so young and naive and blah, blah, blah. And when it came down to the crunch of the matter, he went into hospital about 3 years ago now with a chest infection, and just a chest infection, nothing more, Bernadette. And he was 77 years of age, 76, 77 years of age, and he'd been on a trolley for 72 hours. And the last night that I went in to see him, I chatted with him, and it was around the time, it was actually, yes, it was nearly 4 years ago, because it was coming up to Trump's inauguration, and we were chatting at the trolley side about this. And I said to him, what did he think of that? And he said, oh, the blah, blah, blah. And he said, Colm, the hardest thing for me here is I just can't sleep. I don't have any privacy on this trolley. It was in like nearly from like that TV program ER, where the nurses and doctors have their desk, and that's where they do their notes and stuff. People were jammed on trolleys near the A&E unit.
Yes.
And he said to me, I just can't sleep. I have no privacy. I just can't sleep. And unfortunately, the next day, when my grandmother and I woke up at 7 a.m., she called the hospital to ask how was he doing, how did his night go, like this. And we only found out at that stage that he'd been rushed to high dependency and had a pain in his chest. And we don't really know even today how long he was on the trolley before nurses and doctors spotted him. And unfortunately, he died in the end with heart attacks in intensive care.
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry.
So, I mean, that's an issue that hits home. And that's one that a lot of people in our region have unfortunately suffered the same way. So I'm just wondering, as somebody who's been so vocal on this issue for so many years, and as I say, we salute you for it, for pushing the issue and being active in it. What can somebody do who's at home now, who sees that this is the government and it's been formed? What change can we bring? There's no commitment for 24/7 in the program for government. What change can I bring? Does my voice even matter? I mean, how can, and secondly, how will you in your campaign with 24-hour cardiac care, how will you go forward now to hold this government accountable?
Well, I've always called it out as a human rights issue. It's a violation of human rights. We don't do 24/7 cardiac care. It's a violation of human rights if somebody's on the trolley for 72 hours in a country, awash with money, but where the money hasn't been steered in the right direction, and they're human rights issues. And I spoke about in my own campaign about taking it to Europe, as a human rights issue, simply because that's where it needs to go, and it's really, really important, because if for so long we've been asking for what is a basic right, what is an essential right. Waterford, by the way, for listeners, the southeast region is the only region that doesn't have 24/7 cardiac care. All other regions have it in the country, and we've been denied it for forever. We've been promised a lot, but we've not received it. So it's a human rights issue. So I would say to people that the facility is always there to write to your TV, to write to ministers, to not be afraid to pen an email or a letter or whatever way comfortable that somebody is, but to start really realizing that that power is there for people to do, and not to just wait for somebody else to do it. Okay, that's really important as well, and that we can be all amazing activists ourselves
Mm.
by action. And if enough power comes behind that issue, but and also to support the campaigns, because the campaigns go on.
Mm.
And we've marched in our thousands, you know. I mean, I remember 10, 12,000 people January, I think, 2019. We were all down, there's massive crowds of people calling for 24/7. And we're still here having this conversation about it.
Right.
There's something seriously wrong, you know. Like in the programme for government, it talks about the second cath lab. It doesn't mention 24/7
Mm-hmm.
cardiac care. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have 10 cath labs, and without having 24/7 cardiac care, we're still going down the road to Cork or Dublin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at that, because this is a good one to touch on. This Heritage report that came out a couple of years ago said that
2016.
it wouldn't be justified that we have a second cath lab at the time. It was the outcome of that report. So where does that leave us? Like, what's the difference between a cath lab and 24/7?
Well, I mean, the cath lab provides all of the services that you can use. It's a facility. We have one at the moment, and all of that has the availability to be able to treat somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's caught within a time frame here. At the moment, it's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, nothing on weekends.
Mm.
So we're shortchanged, to use my word, in relation to that service. Because once the doors close at 5 o'clock on Friday evening, a person is either going to Cork or Dublin.
It's a disgrace, to be honest.
Which is an absolute outrage. I mean, just actually think about it. And then the Heritage report talks about it's 90 minutes. 90 minutes, you know, that window where somebody needs to get to for treatment. It can't happen. If you take that for the whole Southeast region of 600,000 people, people live in many different places around that region. So access to that, you know, if you're in Wexford or if I'm over in Hookhead, you know, I have to get across, you know, and I have to be seen in Waterford before I'm transferred to Cork. So to be stabilised before I'm sent on. So there's all of those issues. So there's a lot of hours that are building up, and for every minute the heart muscle is dying.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So when we begin to take that down to the very crunch of that, to that very human experience, we can begin to see the injustice, inequality, and violation of human rights that is.
Mm-hmm. It's really, imagine the amount of pain and suffering someone is going through if they're being transferred to Cork.
Yeah, it's a shocking journey. I mean, and again, people have told me again and again of their stories, and I have interviewed people, you know, for radio, their stories of awful, you know, having to make that journey. And I met people on my campaign, you know, who talked about that, and their relatives, and all of the emotional experience that is, alongside the physical issue that's happening. But there's a lot of people's lives that this is impacting on. And so it's back to people. So when we're talking about programs for government, when we're talking about, you know, wonderful things laid out about well-being, when we're talking about recovery, when we're talking about equity and fairness, all of these words are in this program. You know, we've got to look our TDs, we've got to look our ministers, we've got to look our Taoiseach and our Taoiseach and whoever else in the face and say, what do you mean by that? What exactly do you mean by that? And we have to take that journey to those human stories to say, well, actually, that isn't well-being. That isn't care. That isn't fairness. That isn't equality. That isn't justice. That isn't human rights. And this is why.
Yeah.
And so we have to be willing to have those kinds of conversations and not be afraid to do so. Because I think often, you know, we can be very quiet, and we can, you know, we hope we as you said, we take them at their word. But it's a long time gone to take anything at its word. It has to be actions speak louder than words, and they always will. So I would be saying to people, look at the action. look at the response. Look at where is humanity in relation to any policy, any government policy. Where are the people? If it's not people-centered, it's not a caring policy.
Bernadette, you know, you mentioned